Good evening. Thank you for coming back to my channel. This evening I kind of wanted just to kind of put myself back on the camera and just kind of have like a personal conversation. So I'm probably going to be telling this something as similar as like NarAnon, hi, my name is, or like NarAnon, sharing confessions, however you want to. Probably I might be titling this video, but I just felt really strongly guided to like really do like this kind of like a video tonight. One reason is because I just want to make sure that like I'm trying to stay as personal as I can, to make sure that others know that I am trying to be as compassionate and understanding to anybody that is being drawn to my videos. Any information that I'm giving has been advice or things that I have had to give myself, that I've had to do for myself. So just more of like a recap of what I started this channel for, like the reasoning, everything like that. It just was like when I first started having to open up to a lot of this information, I was really trying to find other people that actually can understand and that can relate with what I was all going through, because in my family, people that were super close to me, no one could actually relate. Like no one dealt with those kind of situations, and a lot of it was like dealing with my upbringing, with my own growing up and my own morals that I put in place for myself. It's like I was always, never felt like the need to like judge others for like their choices or decisions. But from like a very young time in my life, like I just knew that if some things like didn't really relate with me, or some things that people did or like I didn't really agree with, it was just easier for me just to like avoid those kind of conflicts, respect the person, respect what their choices were, but then just be like, that's not for me, and so growing up, I kind of learned that how a lot of the topics that I talk about on this video like was going on around me, but not like intermediately. Like it wasn't like in so close in proximities that it was like in my living life. It was around surrounding lights. Like I would hear certain things or stuff like that growing up, but it was never dealing with like me and myself and people, like friends that I would meet, or associates, or just like day people, like if they I just found like, yeah, it was like if things, we didn't have like the same kind of interests and stuff, like there was just none of that attraction or need to like build a foundation or like a relationship around it. So with dealing with addiction, growing up, found out that it was strongly in my family. It was again, it wasn't like in my intermediate family, but like in the surrounding of the family. And like growing up, I just never really got to know much about those people that technically were related to me, but then they were battling the addiction in that sense. I never really got to know them, the situation. I was never in that seeing it like on a day-to-day basis, or even to any kind of extremity. So I was very much shielded like that when I was growing up. So when I met my so I guess I kind of will just start off with saying like, hi, I am ziainspiration, and my children's father is an addict. And so when I first met him when we were younger, we went through a mutual friend, and we had a lot of the same interests, and we just clicked and hit off, and what built up as like a mutual attraction built up to like relationship, and then it became like a friendship, and it just like our relationship just blossomed and bloomed like how you would hope to anyone that you would have like find an interest with. And then we got married, and then we bought a house, started a family. So it was just like everything that brought up to think and believe like this is like, like how you're supposed to do things. And it just kind of like, it didn't even feel that way. It was just a matter of it just all just felt natural, like with our relationship. And then and until things stopped. And so there was changes, there was behaviors, changes, just things that just like would start offsetting, and then it would just, our relationship just started changing all the time. It just was like to the point where we were parents, and then having our oldest, and then adjusting to being parents, along with still being husband and wife. And everything was fine, but until it wasn't one day. And just like things just started coming up, and and again, like I didn't know a lot about this kind of stuff, so it's not like I'm trying to like come with like excuses or anything, but for me it was just like I knew something was off, and I would start questioning things, and then the reactions and stuff I was just like not used to. And just like I would talk to like friends, family, and just be like, I don't know what's, like it's just crazy. But then like life would still continue, and life would still progress, and then things would be good, and then things would not be, and things would be good, and things would not be. And so gradually there was other stresses in our daily lives, like surrounding lives, and until one day it just felt like it just all like blew up in my face one day. And it was when I was 6 weeks pregnant with our youngest, and he just left. And it was just like, yep, it was totally, totally mind-wrecking, heartbreaking, and it was just like our whole lives just got completely turned over. To one regard, like I said, there was things that were progressing, and things were kind of escalating, and that kind of stuff, and trying to like come into grasp of it, trying to get in control of it before trying to seek help, and tons of different things. But in my situation, in my story, it's I didn't learn about the addiction until months after he had left. There was always like reasonings, and I wouldn't want to call it excuses, because that wouldn't be fair for him. But there was always, when things wouldn't start adding up, or things that I would start questioning, there was always an explanation. There was always, like an excuse, type of thing. And at the time, it would feel logical, and like, this is the person that I trusted with everything. Like he was not only my husband, he was my best friend, and he was the father of my children, and I completely trusted. But it got to the point where certain things were just started getting so frustrating, as like, and it would just put so much of a burden on our marriage. And it was just like, when it comes to like day-to-day activities, after everything, like, of course, like, here comes the blames, like, where it was blames from everything to everyone, every, things outside of actually, like, dealing with the actual person itself that, was, at the end of the day, was causing the turmoil. So kind of goes back to like one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video was like the reasons again why was like, yeah, definitely it was hard for me to talk to anyone that even could relate, to understand what I was going through, because it was one thing when thinking like, my marriage was falling apart. I was a single mom now, raising 2 children, pregnant with our youngest. I became a stay-at-home mom. I put my career on hold after we got pregnant with our second child. And so it was just like, yeah, it was just like, okay, all these different things and stuff. But then it was another thing when I found out about the addiction. And so fortunately by then I was already seeing a therapist, a counselor, shortly after our separation. And so that was helping tremendously. And I was already putting in the motions to start getting our children to start being seen as well, because they were going through their own, emotions and upsets and everything with everything that was going on, especially with a lot of the behaviors coming from our loved one. And so when finally like the light was shed on to where it was like, this is real, this is what's happening, it was just like, whoa. But I was fine. But then it was almost like, it was heartache, it was like disappointment, it was frustration, it was anger, it was all these different emotions. But it was finally like, okay, like a lot of this is now finally making sense, where before it was just kind of like, I couldn't get it, like, like my family, like, like we couldn't understand what was happening until then finally we had, in a sense, like a reason, and a thing. So that was a true big eye-opener, and I had to really sit back, and that was what I finally needed. Like I didn't even realize it then at that point when I made the decision, but it was putting an end to all the manipulation. It was putting an end to all the guilts and all the excuses that I was hearing for years. And I was finally able to put a foot down and say, no more. No more. Because the reason I did was for my children. I knew at that point that things were going to substantially change, because I was not going to have this cycle repeating. Because just like I said, like how I was aware, even though I wasn't like involved in it, I was aware that there was addiction in my family. So I knew that it was genetically in our genes, and in his family it was substantially, very much, yes, there was addiction in his family as well, and it was very, very close to him. Very, very close to him. And so there was things that he had to live through and grow up with, and see and experience very, very intimately, very, very closely. And so when we started deciding to like start a family, we had the full discussions, like we have to be super, super careful, because like it's in both of our genes, so we have to be super, super, super careful with these kids. We have to make sure that, and like making all like the the responsible conversations that you would have when you're thinking about starting a family, in addition to all of the other things that come with like making sure that you have the necessities and the means to actually take care and have these children, and that you are prepared mentally, financially, and all that kind of stuff that comes with it. That was one of the conversations that we had. And just from, again, like being so close and intimate with him, like things that he would share, his upbringing, like with anyone that you love and you care about, like you don't want somebody that you care about to be like in like being hurt, and you can't help feel like defensive for them, and just being like, man, like, and feel sorry for them, and and still have that, want to have that compassion to know, and that confidence to get out of it. And yeah, like he was just like, he didn't want to follow in those same footprints. He didn't want to follow that same path. And I knew that intimately from being so closely to him. So to then see him following those same steps that he swore and was so terrified that he would ever go to, that was devastating enough to actually watch and to understand and grasp, especially since considering, like, I loved him dearly. And so, but where I had to put that foot down was just like, I'd be damned if this was going to be then my life with these kids. I was like from everything that he would tell me and stuff, I could not imagine going through and putting those kids through that same kind of stuff. And because seeing the pain and the heartache and, feeling it when he would be talking about it, like seeing that pain coming from him. And I was just like, no, that is not going to be my kid's life. I'd be damned if I'm stopping this cycle now, because he specifically did not want to go down this cycle. And I was just like, this is not going to be my kids. I'm not going to put them in the same situation and put those things with them to like have them have a higher chance in, following the same footprints. Like, I'm stopping the cycle now. And so that was my first boundary. And I had already made the decision for my children, especially since I was actually pregnant with our youngest. Like I was mentioning in the first videos on this channel, was like how first lesson was to take care of yourselves. That's the very first and most important thing that you can do when you have a loved one that has addiction problem. And with mine, I couldn't even eat. I was so heartbroken and devastated. Like, I had to like forcefully make sure that I was taking care of myself and eating, because I was so distraught. Like, and another reason I brought up this video was because some stuff that has happened this past week, and it just brought some stress, some anxieties and stuff like that, like memories from the past. A lot came through this week from that time frame. And yep, I was starting to feel like a little weird, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten, and then it started reminding me of like all of that stuff that happened during that time frame. And when I found out everything, then it was just like, yep, I was like, I'm saving. That was the main focus, was like for my children, was that everything I've done from that time till recent to today as I'm filming this video, and it's going to be the same going forward many, many more years, is that it's all been for my children, and I do not take back anything. It's all been to have that purpose and to have that pure intent, and to know that I'm doing it for their best interests. There's absolutely, I have no regret of any decision that I've made moving forward. And so so I'll be doing further videos on this channel of other things that have helped me in this process, things that I've learned going through all of this stuff and everything. But yeah, that was the main decision, was that when I set the firm boundaries, and I was like, that's not going to be it, because my children. And when I was starting to do research, because again, like, I didn't understand it, I didn't know anything about it, so my main thing was like, I was researching almost everything that I could find in relations to our situation. And ironically enough, when I was actually researching things for my children, like when, how it is like growing up with a loved one with an addiction problem, with an addiction, having a parent that has addiction, like how that can actually affect a children. When I was actually researching that for my own children, so that I can understand that from that point of view, like I was reading his upbringing. It was exactly like things that, like he was having to live through and experience himself, because he had parents that had addictions. And I was just like, yep, nope. I was like, I'm not going to repeat this pattern. I'm not going to repeat my cycle. And so granted, again, it's like, the 3 C's, you didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you can't cure it. And so even for parents that are dealing with children, adolescents, ones that's their loved one with addiction, you can't still put that guilt and that blame. That's part of this process that I will still be talking about when dealing with my loved one that has addiction. It's like people that can have like the best upbringing can still fall in this pattern. And so, and then in, my situation, it's where I've never associated with anybody that had addiction or that were use, narcotics and stuff like that, to where it would be, this kind of extreme. Like it ended up being right in my home, and so, and it's been like a lot of having to learn, and then having to forgive myself and deal with all the guilt and everything too when I start researching and learning. And then when I start again, it was like that awakening, like, oh, this is what it is. And then thinking about all of the past, because sometimes when things end in one situation, you just start thinking about like all of the stuff that happened at the beginning and all of the signs that I probably had missed and misunderstood and didn't take serious enough. Then it was all of that kind of stuff, and just being like, oh my gosh, like, how could I be so naive? And just coming to the point of just being like so forgiving with myself as well too. At the end of the day, it's just, like I said, like when you go into like when you're having to if you're here on this channel, like like you're not, no one wakes up one day and like hopes it's going to be like their life one day. And again, I don't regret anything. I don't regret any of the experiences that I've learned, because they've helped me so much. I don't regret ever meeting him and like falling in love and starting a family, because I have my children and we are extremely, extremely happy right now. Like we are in such a good place right now, which is why like it was all worth it. I would do it all over again. And I remember that time when I was sitting in a session with my therapist and my counselor. I was pregnant with our youngest. I had a friend, watching my two other little ones at the time, and just thinking, and I was just crying, and I was just like, I know there's going to be a time where I'm going to be like, it was all worth it. I know there's going to be a time for that. I was like, but I just want that to be here now, because I didn't want to feel and deal with all of that pain and all of those feelings I was feeling with at the time, because it was super hard and super painful. But I knew, I was like, it's all going to be worth it. I just wish that I could be there like now. And so just give that reassurance to you guys that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Again, I'm just sharing things that have helped me in my experiences. My family and I are in such a better place right now. So, but I know how it is to just be able to like talk to people that can relate, but also having hope, like knowing that when you're in that dark, that there is that light, and be able to see that light, even though like you might not be able to see at the point. I've been there. I've been at that low point, and I'm just here to get that reassurance that there is hope, that there is something better, and I'm just here to share with you as much as I can to try and help. So just know that you are so strong. Take it day by day, and know that you're doing your best. My information's below if you want to contact me, or I'm here to help any way that I can. But I'm sending so much love. And you guys take care. Bye.